Don in London, hello. December 13th, my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substances or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, so a recovering alcoholic. And my behaviour could be equally addictive and obsessive around people, places, things. So these days, just one day at a time, I aim to be sober. I start the day without a drink in hand, alcohol, and hopefully by the end of the day I haven't taken one. And why do I emphasise one day? Well, the one day we have, this day, absolutely one day only, to be able to live the life we have. And for a lot of my history, I lived in the past, wanting the old glory, or still full of wishful thinking about how it might have been, and then creating fantasies about the future, about how life would be once I got to a certain point. And of course we do need hope, hope that is based on some sort of reality. So what's made this possible, from being an alcoholic, 24/7 drinker, on the streets, too many times to hospital, too many times promising myself, let alone anybody else, that I would stop. How did I do it? Well, it was a moment of clarity. Having tried to think my way out logically, use self-will, willpower, you name it, I tried to use it, utilise it, and I couldn't stop. And that moment of clarity was simply, I can't do it on my own. And then I started to listen to family, friends, community, and people in a fellowship where they stay sober one day at a time, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And although it sounds a bit spooky to join a fellowship in order to find sobriety, it seemed to serve a purpose, because it was a community of people who believed it was possible to stay sober one day at a time with some simple principles and steps of action. And it is all about the action when it comes to either drinking or not drinking, taking a substance or not taking a substance, enacting a behaviour or not enacting a behaviour. It's about practicing a different way of life. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, fellowship, I can't speak for it, don't want to, don't need to. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak for themselves where they will. And the great truth of AA is that it is the many voices which provide the wisdom, the experience, the strength and the hope to make one day sober. And for that I am going to be grateful for the rest of my life, and I hope that is the way I feel till I peg it, expire. And why? Because it means I have freedom to choose what I can and cannot do today. Freedom to choose what I can and cannot do based on my current life experience, my current reality. So no longer wanting or needing to live in the past, former glory of how it was back then, or trying to reconstruct a fantasy for the future. I'll be all right when I get to. All I have to be is all right now. And that's what fellowship basically has taught me. Live in the moment, understand what is possible and what is not possible. So what is AA, and why do I shout its virtue? And the simple reason is, if it's saving my life, and it is, as I say, the many voices in the fellowship, it's what you see is what you get when you go to a meeting, when you encounter people who are sober, and how they do it. All about the action. So AA, what is it? This is the AA preamble on this little card. It's shared at every meeting I go to, and I go to as many as I feel able rather than necessary, because there's something else about fellowship which I'll talk about in a bit. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The very essence of fellowship, helping each other. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. It's not asking you to stop, it's just saying, if you've got a desire to stop because it might be a good idea, give it a go. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy. But as individuals, you can do what you like. Freedom of choice, that's what it's about. But we don't bring it into fellowship and try and convert people to our point of view, except maybe a desire to stop drinking. does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So no matter where you're from, what you do, whether you're living on the street like I ended up, and I could have been there till I died had I not had that moment of clarity, or in the boardroom making decisions which affects tens of thousands of people, or a politician, or a writer, or an actor, or a milkman, or a DIY specialist, or an odd job man like I turned out to be. Done the boardroom bit, went to the other extreme. And why not? Because I still wasn't able to cope with my life, and I wasn't able to cope with my inability to stop drinking. So I'm very grateful. And what do I mean about meetings being the essence? Well, in a meeting, the structure is very simple. Somebody sets it up, somebody finds somebody to speak at the beginning of the meeting about their recovery, their experience, strength and hope today, and we all sit and listen, and then we share back about our stories. Or we keep quiet, like I did for a long time, because I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to say it. I'd lost the ability to speak to anybody about anything, and I was what is called a shivering denizen, still in the realm of alcohol, shaking like a leaf, and not even able to pick up a cup of tea or coffee. And that's how I started, and I somehow sat there long enough to pick up a cup of tea after a couple of meetings, start eating biscuits because I hadn't eaten in a long while. I just wanted to know how to eat again, let alone anything else. That's how it was. And that's how we get. That's how we get when we are unable to stop doing something which just is desperately bad for us. The nature of human beings. Self-will to the point of being willful and self-harming and self-destructing. And I'm very lucky because I've been around a little bit now, and I share and do service. And last night there was an option. I'm not a particularly religious person, but there's a carol service for anonymous folk in a particular anonymous people in a particular venue, which I would have liked to have gone to, because at the end of it we give to any charity that the church who runs it, the carol service, and there's so many. There are so many. It opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of people do a lot of good just because they want to, or maybe they need to. But I missed it because I had service at a different meeting, not a carol service, where I do greeting, temporary literature secretary while they're away working, and I, for my sins, look after the money, which is not one of my favourite jobs. Treasury is looking after the money and making sure there is enough to pay the rent. I look after it. I'm a custodian. I don't decide how it's spent. That's done by everybody, and that's the same as everything in AA. It's a joint group decision, and anybody who is doing service is a trusted servant, and that goes all the way up the hierarchy as well. Trusted servants don't tell you what to do in AA. Trusted servants are there to make sure that there's enough literature, that the rent is paid, the books can be bought and sent out. You name it. It's about doing service. So nobody rules in AA except the majority, and even then that's very difficult because it's an anarchic democracy where everybody has their say, and it can take a month of Sundays, as they say, 24 Sundays, or no, 30 Sundays, a month of Sundays, 30 Sundays, a long time to make any decisions which are going to impact on everybody, because everybody has a say if they choose to. But you don't have to do anything. All you need to do is sit there and absorb what is going on and find out how the programme works. Here I share some literature. Things falling about here. Daily reflections, very important to me. It's one reflection a day, whether you believe in something or not. And for December the 13th, it says, thinking of others. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. Thinking of others has never come easily to me, especially this is in the problem where I'm addicted. It never came easily to me because it was all self-centered. Even if I was going to be a philanthropist, I'd be the best one with a big hat saying I'm a philanthropist on it. Even when I try to work the AA program, I'm prone to thinking, How do I feel today? Am I happy, joyous and free? The program tells me that my thoughts must reach out to those around me. Would that newcomer welcome someone to talk to? And that reminds me of a few weeks ago where I wasn't able to get to somebody, and I mentioned it in a video, and then a week later I was able to connect with that person, and hopefully they're still sober today. And that's what it's all about, making a difference in somebody else's life. That person looks a little unhappy today. Maybe I could cheer him up. It is only when I forget my problems and reach out to contribute something to others that I can begin to attain the serenity and God consciousness I seek. When he talks about God consciousness, it's God of your understanding. I tend to believe in God or not believe in God depending on my life experience, which is the same for everybody. You know, is life experience telling me there is a God, or there is no God? But regardless of that, it's about my good conscience. You know, an appeal to my good conscience or anything like that is about how am I helping others, the very elementary level of fellowship, which is to shake a person's hand, to greet them on the door, to organise a meeting, to make coffee, to sweep up, to do anything which takes us into an action which is not about us directly and is about helping other people in an environment of sobriety. And often it takes people a long time, many visits, to get the message of rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed the path. And the path is very simply 12 principles which set a context for living well without drinking. How easy is that? Well, if it was easy, it wouldn't have taken me 35 years. And as a well-known pop star said last night on the TV, it took them 43 years of drinking, and every single experience along the way was part of the spiritual experience of reality, because we all live in reality, even if we're in a fantasy in our heads. Reality is still going on around us. The true spiritual experience for me is to be able to live in the moment where our feelings match the experience we're having. Where our feelings match the experience that we are having. We don't bring old feelings into the moment, and we're not feeling like we're waiting for a life to start. Life is going on regardless of anything else. And when I look for what I can and cannot do on a daily basis, the serenity prayer or the serenity reflection, whatever suits you, unique and authentic we are as people, that serenity prayer to God of good conscience is available in the moment to ask myself the right questions. And it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. There are things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. Those things I can change are my attitudes, behaviour and actions. And the wisdom to know the difference. And the wisdom to know the difference we learn in every moment. And for me, it's always just for today.